From 9-4 to celebrated to billboards and hated, it's been one hell of a ride for Neal Brown and company. But now we've got billboards coming up that want to keep Neal Brown. It's drama on drama on drama, and this is Locked On West Virginia.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome back in today for the second time, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I promised you, those of you who were in the comments for that show said, no, these billboards are real. They're legit. And I was like, well, I guess I'm doing a second show today. So here I am doing a second show today on the billboards and some more stuff that I've added in for filler. Man, so here we go again. More drama in Morgantown. We can't even have a bye week without some type of drama to happen around town. And, man, I found a really good article, and I want to give a shout-out to the Smoking Musket over at SB Nation for this article. I really liked the read, and I think it really sums things up how we got here. From Big Noon Kickoff to Billboards, how we got here. In the span of 3 months, we've gone from the biggest hype train to fire the coach and Billboards. How we got here, how we got from here to there is fascinating. But before we do that, let's talk about the new Billboards first, then we'll go back to that article. Unbelievable, man. So let me, I actually didn't have that one pulled up, so let me get it really quick. Sorry about that. All right. Several Keep Neal Brown signs, billboards on display now in town. The conversation around the WVU head coach's football coach's job isn't going away anytime soon. If you'll notice, I put the one of the smuggest faces I could find of Neal Brown on the thumbnail. A group of disgruntled West Virginia fans who call themselves the Wolfpack recently purchased billboards around Morgantown to let their frustration be heard with the head football coach at WVU with Fire Neal Brown in big, bold lettering. This is Skylar Callahan. I hadn't read this yet, but it's a classless move and a big waste of money, in my opinion. This is not me saying that. There's nothing wrong with being upset with the product on the field and complaining about social media, complaining on social media, but slapping it on a billboard's a bit much. Plus, the money could be better used for better things and could even be directed towards Country Road Trust to, help land top-tier talent. Now there appears to be a weird game being played by each side of the Mountaineer fan base as Keep Neal Brown billboards. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. Keep Neal Brown billboards are now on display in the Morgantown area. The Daily and I don't know how they say that. The Daily Athenaeum. Daily Athenaeum. Luke Blaine reported that the 8 billboards were customized by Russ Bonasso, the owner of Micro Outdoor. Even on a bye week following a road win, there's still a lot to talk about the future of Neal Brown at West Virginia. And with just 4 games to go, he will remain the top of the conversation until athletic director Ren Baker makes a decision. Apparently, I'm tongue twisted tonight. Sorry, guys. So let me go to that article really quick because there was a couple other things that were said in it. I think this is the one I meant to go to. So, yeah, here's the quote from Bonasso. Well, we had seen, and this is the Daily Athenaeum. Well, we had seen the Fire Neal Brown billboards, and I was moved to make a statement concerning how I and other people feel, Bonasso said. Bonasso said he wanted people in favor of Brown to be represented, which is fair. It's fair whether we agree or not. I think that there are 2 sides to every story, and my side is pro Neal Brown. I don't want one side to be represented and the other not. Bonasso said, I don't know or still don't know if somebody will come and say, hey, we'd like to put up another message about this pro Neal Brown thing, but I wasn't going to wait for that. Bonasso said fans should consider the feelings of Brown, his family, and those within the program. He also questioned how the Fire Neal Brown billboards affected the image of the WVU fan base. How does that make Neal Brown feel? How does that make his wife and family feel? How does that make the current players feel or anybody that may be trying to recruit feel? And what does it say overall about we fans here in West Virginia and across the country? It's not the world, Bonasso said. The billboards with Keep Neal Brown are at 8 locations across Morgantown, including Star City, Saberton near Easton Hill, Van Voorhees Road, and Route 705. So they basically doubled up the originals. So here's my deal. They want their side to be represented, and I get that and respect it. I'll just say this: your side's been being represented for 6 years with mostly positive review. There's been some negativity, but I would say it wasn't the majority of the fan base anyway. I'll say that wanted Neal Brown gone up until now. This year, there were a lot, but I wouldn't say the majority. I would say probably more along the lines of 30% of the fan base that wasn't happy with him in the last 2 years. A lot of people have jumped on board these last 2 years. But to say that you want your side to be recognized, in my opinion, that's fair. It's fair that you want to be recognized, but don't act like Neal Brown hasn't been. He's had plenty of time to show us what he is, right? And I've seen enough. I've seen enough, man. I don't understand. You want to erect these billboards, but it's almost like we're talking about the billboards again when that subject was pretty much dead. So by doing that, you've only resurrected the conversation again when it was dead. So I don't understand the concept behind it, really, because all you're doing is bringing more attention to the very thing that you said was negative and made us look bad. So you can't have it both ways. I would also say that. Maybe you could have went on social media, made a video, did something like this, like I'm doing. There's a myriad of other ways besides, quote unquote, stooping to the level of the other people. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing or anything like that. Just couldn't phrase it much better. So at the end of the day, this is a wild thing. It's more negative, even though these billboards, in my opinion, are overly positive for their side of the fan base. I think it still is going to shine a bit of a negative light. Just, we look crazy. We, and the thing is not everybody knows the stats like we know. Like, how many of you can rattle off the main things, the main reasons we want Neal fired? The 0-8, the 8 in a row, hasn't won on the road against a ranked team, 3-17 versus ranked teams, 6 years without being ranked in the top 25. All those reasons, quite a few losing seasons, and at that. So I think, we can rattle off that stuff. And what's in favor of Neal Brown that you can rattle off? Well, everything that you can rattle off for Neal is basically off the field. Whether that's how he handles recruiting, how he handles families in recruiting, how he handles the culture, quote unquote, around the program. Obviously, he goes to bat for his assistants and people on the staff like no other. It took him 6 years to really fire a major piece. Like, there has been people that come and go at the positions, like, wide receiver coach or offensive coordinator, but that was a forced change. So it's not something that he does often. And so obviously the Leslie thing was out of character for him. So I think you look at Skylar Callahan did a video on this and said, hey, look, he's been snapping at people at press conferences. He's been firing his, quote unquote, his buddies. And a lot of this is uncharacteristic of Neal Brown and just goes to show how much pressure he actually might be under. Fair assessments, indeed, to Skylar. So how we got here, I think this is a good article really quick before we go to break. On Monday morning, October 28, 2024, the West Virginia Mountaineers were greeted with 3 billboards placing in strategic locations, declaring one phrase: fire Neal Brown. How did we get here? How do we go from the biggest hype train in the offseason to billboards in a fascinating journey? First, the backstory. Don Nehlen retires in 2000 after a 20-year coaching career by winning his final game at West Virginia, a 48-39 win over Ole Miss in the Music City Bowl, which was Eli Manning's coming out party. Nehlen gives way to former player turned coach Rich Rodriguez, who, after a 3-8 campaign, embarks on one of the greatest runs in school history. falling short against Pitt. Rodriguez leaves for Michigan. Bill Stewart's hired. 27 wins in 3 years. Fails to win a conference title and eventually replaced by Dana. Holgorsen wins big early and is a consistent winner over his 8 years before moving to Houston. That's 110 words to sum up 40 years of history, and it's meant to be brief. Neal Brown was hired in 2019 as the 35th head coach at West Virginia. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I thought he was just going to go this year. So let's go over the last 2 years anyway. Going into 2023, we were picked last, right? And a lot of people felt like, this is just me saying, we were, one of the worst rosters in college football. And he was 22 and 25 through 4 years at that point. Things weren't looking great. Losses to rivals Maryland and Pitt, along with losing seasons in 3 of his first 4 seasons, fan resentment and frustration was growing. 2023 would be a rebound year as junior quarterback Garrett Green, who took over for JT Daniels, provided life and excitement to the offense. A season-opening loss put a damper on the team, but they rebounded with 4 straight wins, including the backyard brawl, and the offense stalled down the stretch, never scoring more than 24 points against FBS teams. Following a bye week, the Mountaineers took on former head coach Dana Holgorsen and his Houston Cougs. We know how that turned out. We know how that one turned out. Aided by a soft schedule, which featured only 2 ranked teams, the Mountaineers finished 8-4 and earned a bowl bid. Rembaker worked back channels to get the Mountaineers to the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and West Virginia dominated 30-10 against the depleted UNC team, missing several starters, including first-round pick Drake May, and things looked brighter in Morgantown for the first time since Brown was hired. 2024, Big Noon kickoff. This brings us to this season and how we went from maximum hype train to fans putting up billboards. Neal Brown was rewarded with the contract extension, giving him 4 more years on his contract, extending his buyout, and giving him more money for assistance. The season started with Brown complaining about being left out of the top 25 again. People around the country raised expectations of the team, looking at the roster and seeing a large swath of returning production on a 9-4 team, especially the offensive side of the ball, and a new playoff system which guaranteed a team a playoff bid to a conference champion. Big 12 is pretty winnable. The Big 12 is now on a wide open conference with the loss of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC and the inclusion of Colorado, Utah, Arizona State after just adding Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and BYU. Fans brought into the hype and expectations of the team as they sold out tickets for the first time in a long time and looked to sell out every game this season. Pat McAfee was making and cracking jokes. The hype train got rolling, and then obviously the Penn State game happened, and we know how the season has unfolded. So now everybody has woken up stunned, basically, Monday morning. Everybody was stunned to wake up to the Billboard proclaiming what fans started screaming and now boldly proclaim. Fire Neal Brown. Whatever your opinion on the Billboard thing is, if you think it's tacky, it's poor taste, or if you think it's awesome, you're right. It is and does encompass all of those things, but it's a reminder that fans have spent thousands and thousands of dollars supporting this team. Fans organized a $100,000 money bomb in 2022 and were met with a 5-7 season. A 5-star quarterback who didn't meet expectations and a fired athletic director. Season tickets are not cheap. Some require a donation plus ticket costs. $400 tickets. If you have a family, that adds up quickly. Family of 4 in the gold zone costs $1,000. 4 times $250 plus $1,600 per tickets. $400 a ticket. That is $2,600 for tickets. This is the 5th year you could buy tickets since 2020 did not allow it. That is $13,000 spent on just attending games in a year. Add in fuel, hotel, food, merchandise, and many other things, and fans could easily have spent upwards of $20,000 or more on being a fan of this team. On top of that, the money spent attending games, the school was also asking for donations for NIL, MAC, and a whole host of other items. This doesn't include basketball and baseball. Fans are frustrated because they spent a lot of their hard-earned money to be entertained by a football team, and they have been told that 5-7 is a really good accomplishment, that they have been told that only year 2 because of COVID and NIL and other excuses. Year 0, they were stopped from flying a plane. This is how you get to fire the coach of Billboards. You suppress the voice of the people who support you the most. Fans don't have the tickets or the pockets to fund a $10 million buyout, but they do have the funds to make the next month at least a little less enjoyable. an absolute banger article. Banger article. Good job. I almost said whoever wrote that. The Daily Athenaeum. Good job, man. Great article. So I felt passionate reading it. So on the other side of the break, we're going to continue this conversation along these lines and answer this question too. Shadon Brown, he was the co-defensive coordinator, but he didn't get elevated to the job. Should we read into that? Yes, we should. This is Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. That's right. Game Time picks makes curation easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat on the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, which makes your purchase covered with the most flexible customer ticket service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and then ask yourself this. What time is it? It's game time. Who? Okay, so I thought it would be interesting to read this thing that Mike Osti wrote as well. And I'm sorry for reading today, guys. But I wanted to get through this content really quick and discuss it. So Mike Osti wrote an article. It was called Clearing Up Any Confusion About WVU Football Firing Coach Jordan Leslie. As expected, the firing of Jordan Leslie sparked a strong reaction from WVU fans. And even though head coach Neal Brown released a statement about the decision, we at West Virginia Sports Now wanted to offer what we know about the situation in an effort to clear up any confusion. And this will answer some questions people were asking me earlier that I was telling you. I told you these same answers, but we'll go through them again. It was Neal Brown's decision to part ways with Leslie, not Wren Baker. The only thing Wren Baker had to answer was, is there money for the buyout or not? That's pretty much it. Brown previously fought to keep Leslie and his defensive staff intact after West Virginia endured a rough 2022 season. The decision to fire Leslie was in the works for multiple weeks, and the bye week was viewed as the right time if things had not improved defensively. That means the defense had to perform no matter if the Mountaineers won as a team. And I'll throw this in as well. From what I was told back before we played Oklahoma State and Kansas, that first bye week right in that area was thought about then as well. But then we played Oklahoma State and played so well against them. And that was before anybody knew that Oklahoma State was going to be as mediocre as they are. I mean, they hadn't been great up until then, but most people thought they would figure it out at that point in time. So meeting Mike Gundy at any point in time is always a good win. And it just it was kind of like the North Carolina win in a way. You're beating a team that's not number one, they weren't at full strength on defense. Number two, they're just not as good as they were last year. So it's kind of an illusion. WVU Director of Athletics Wren Baker and Brown talk frequently, and any reports that Brown was forced to do this by Baker are false. The decision to promote Coons instead of Shadon Brown likely signals the writing being on the wall for Shadon Brown. I didn't know that was going to be in there, but that segues into my conversation. The expectations is no decision about Neal Brown's future will take place until the end of the season, and the expectation is also that Neal Brown remain as head coach, barring a collapse in the final 4 games. Soon after the news began to circulate, Neal Brown offered his comments about Leslie and the plan moving forward throughout the 2024 season. I met with Coach Leslie this morning and informed him that we were making a change at defense coordinator position, Brown said in a statement. I'm very thankful for the investment Jordan and his family have made in West Virginia football. I'm going to stop it right there because I just read something in Osti's article that just completely floored me. Did you guys hear what he just said? The expectation is also that Neal Brown will remain as head coach, barring a collapse in the final 4 games. I know Mike Ostie. I do. I talk to him all the time. He wouldn't write that. No matter what people think about him. I know that some people dislike Mike because he can grate on some people's nerves apparently. But he's not a liar, and he wouldn't just say that. So that likely he's probably been given information. He's not the kind of guy to put information he don't have out there. He's just not that kind of dude. So that just shocked me. I don't know how I haven't. I don't know if anybody else has seen that, or maybe I'm making too much of it. But he would not write that if it wasn't likely to happen. So that gives me more to talk about here. The expectation is that Neal Brown will return barring a collapse in the final 4 games. Now, obviously, people are going to yell at me and say, duh, they fired Jordan Leslie. Like, why can't you see the writing on the wall? And that's fair. But I think most of us, if not all of us on the side of fire Neal Brown, have still thought it was going to go happen. Unless they win all the games. I mean, I understand that if they win all the games, okay, then you got me. Jedi, this is just something we don't agree on, man. Obviously, we don't agree on a lot. So whether you think it's dumb or not really doesn't matter. Go get you a microphone and talk about it if you have that strong of an opinion on it. But at the end of the day, Neal Brown doesn't win on the field, and that's what matters. I don't know how people can't get that through their thick skulls. It's like they just choose to overlook everything else, and everything on the field doesn't matter because the things off the field are doing okay. It just makes no sense. I'll read something really quick that I think makes some sense as well. If I can get it here. Let's see. Sorry about that, y'all. All right, let's see. Most of us are from West Virginia, not all of us. Most of us grew up West Virginia fans, not all of us. Most of us graduated from West Virginia, not all of us were fans. We love our team, our state, and our school, and we've donated numerous times to the MAC, NIL, etc. We didn't need the publicity, and we didn't do it for that reason, and I personally have likely given well in excess of $100,000. I'm not even sure how much, to be honest. This was never personal or about Neal Brown and his family. This is about his performance. He makes $4 million a year. He's the highest paid state employee, and he should not be beyond reproach. Every year, cities, counties, states have elections. We see much worse negative campaigns for lower paying jobs. Look at the current political climate we're in. People want to just get all bent out of shape over asking somebody to be fired or a billboard. All we're asking is for the highest paid employee to move on by Rembaker's hand, and people think that we might hurt recruiting. But you know what hurts recruiting? 6 years of mediocrity, losing, never beating a ranked team ever, and by the end of the season, never being ranked. You know what else hurts recruiting? Having fans who no longer care. Apathy. That's what I say to that, Jedi. And at the end of the day, that's what's happening, man. That's what's happening. People can say this or that and punk around about it, but I promise you, if Neal Brown has to win 5 games in a row to get any semblance of the fan base back on board with him, I'm just telling you the truth. Anything worse than 8 or 9 wins, and most of the fan base is going to be absolutely livid that he returns. I can promise you that. We'll continue this conversation right after the break. This is Locked On West Virginia. And we're back. Didn't have an ad read again today. Yeah, so I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I'm not trying to be all been out of shape over anything. I just want to get my point across. But I'm not going to tell somebody they're dumb for having an opinion. It's just an opinion, right? Everybody can have one. But back to the Shadon Brown thing, I think that was an interesting point that I think most of us noted when it happened was, okay, here's a guy that's supposed to be the assistant defensive coordinator, and is not being elevated to defensive coordinator, and his direct supervisor, or his, the guy right above him just got fired, can't bode well for him. But they probably can't afford to fire him, because then you're cutting out 2 defensive staff members, and that's just going to make it really difficult. So the likelihood is he's gone after the year. I would be shocked if Shadab Brown was back. I don't have any working inside knowledge of that. It's just looking at the writing on the wall there. So that, and I wish him the best. He's great in interviews. He seems like he really cares about the players. But what they had working, man, just wasn't working, especially on the back end. So I think I've seen a lot of comments about Ren Baker and people wanting to defend Ren. Yeah, I absolutely, he deserves defending. I don't think he's done anything that would warrant his job being discussed yet. I think, if he keeps Neal Brown next year over, and we have another bad year or below expectations type year, you're dang skippy that people are going to start talking about his job then, because he wrote the extension. Before that, Shane Lyons was attached to the Neal Brown hire, not Ren Baker. So, but some in the comments are asking about Neal Brown's work ethic. That's not to be. Nobody says he doesn't work hard. I say it all the time. He gets every single thing right that you need. And I'll say it one more time for everybody in the back. Neal Brown gets it right as far as that I know of. Now, there are people that thinks he's a what's the best way to say this? An ass. We'll just say that. Behind closed doors, like kind of how he's been in here lately in press conferences, like towards Osti and others, like how he's kind of been snappy and, different things. I think, maybe he's like that behind. I don't know, though. I don't know the guy, so I don't really want to speculate. But as far as relationship with the recruits and the promises he makes players, he lives and dies through loyalty to his players and his coaches. I have no doubt that he works extremely hard, and all that kind of stuff. I love how he treats different families and players and all that. And up until this year, I really liked him in press conferences too. I always enjoyed his press conferences and felt he came off very personable and likable. And that just hasn't been the case lately. Too many excuses. Every time he gets a chance to talk, I was talking to somebody earlier. Every time he gets a chance to talk, it was Coos. He's talking about that schedule, how hard it is. He drops it all almost every time we talk, So, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough schedule. It's been unfortunate to have to play 2 non-Power 5 teams, or 2 Power 5 teams, that are rivals, or at least one every single year, pretty much. I'm sure that's difficult. But at the end of the day, like that thing that I read said, you're the state's highest paid employee. You can't be beyond reproach. People have to be able to criticize that, or else you're suppressing people and they take to doing what they want to do, like he was saying. And it's not like we're all like, I'm not saying like suppressed as in like what you think of historically, but like, listen, if you want to think for 1 second that, I'll just speak for myself. Access journalism is when certain people who very rarely rock the boat get all the information. They get all the inside information. They get the leads. They know things ahead of time that all of the rest of us don't know. And then as a result, they don't write certain things or talk about certain things. Like you see me, every negative thing I talk about. And do I get credentials? No. Do I get certain other things? No. You know how many people at Locked On have credentials? Hundreds of people at Locked On have credentials. So I accepted a few years ago that I would have to get much bigger for that to happen. I don't know whose decision it is. And I realized that I'm not a professional journalist. I'm just a fan with an account that got taken over by a company. But I do think that we border on access journalism. There is a direct benefit to not rocking the boat. There's a direct benefit to that. So That's my thing. If I didn't rock the boat or didn't talk about subjects that could possibly make people dislike me, or within the program, sometimes talk about hard subjects, maybe I would have got some things that I've asked for. But I made that bet, so that's just the way it is, I guess. That's just the way it is. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And look, we're all Mountaineers at the end of the day, right? Somebody commented to me earlier, look, I don't always agree with your opinions, but we are Mountaineers, and to me, that means something. If you grew up in the state of West Virginia like I did, it means something to me. It really does. You know how many other people look down on us? Why do we want to bash each other at the same time? Thank you very much, Mr. Kurt. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. He said, Wolfpack here, enjoying the show, Paul. And I can't say the rest. I'm not allowed to, Kurt, put up any super chats on the screen anymore, just per Locked On. I need to keep reminding people, though, like if you want to support me directly, there are other ways you can do it on PayPal or Cash App, but I haven't been promoting it because it's not all about the money for me. But at the same time, I don't want them to get the money that you're sending me. So I'll type in the chat really quick. If anybody wants to donate directly to me for whatever reason, which does happen, I basically do this on my own time for the most part. Let's see. Let's see. So this is Cash App here. And then PayPal is, I can't remember. I have to look. I don't know. That's my Cash App, though. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me. And I thank you so much, Kurt, for that. Very nice of you. Obviously, I didn't put a name on anything that I read earlier. Hopefully that was okay. But guys, keep coming around. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm sure there'll probably be something laid right out for me to talk about. So we'll see. I think at the end of the day, man, it's going to be an interesting couple weeks. We've got Garrett Green. We don't know what's going on with that situation. Hopefully he recovers. Don't want to see that head injury make him have to retire or anything like that. This is his last year. So I would love to see him come on and do well the last few games, but I don't know. It's an odd time to be a West Virginia fan. I mean, it just is. I don't even want to get into it right now, but because I have to go. I'm already at 32 minutes. I'm supposed to be off at 30. So, guys, I love yous. And listen, keep coming back. We'll talk more tomorrow. I'll be live or pre-recorded sometime tomorrow. Grezzy, thank you so much, brother. Thank you for that. Thanks for the content. Do you think them keeping Neal Brown is really about them not having the money, or is it just an excuse? It's probably a little bit of both. Ren is the kind of guy that doesn't overreact to like he's like super not an overreaction type of guy. So I think he, because he's attached to the extension, I think he needs to kind of hope for this to work out. And if we win the rest of these games and win 8 and then have a chance to win 9 in the bowl game, all of us Neal Brown people that think he should be gone really ain't going to have much to say, even with the 3-17 and the no ranked wins and no ranking. If they win 9 again, there's not going to be much we can say about it. So I think that's what they're aiming for, man. And here's what's crazy, guys. There is a 15% chance, I think I saw today, that West Virginia can still make the college or the Big 12 championship game. It's going to take 2 or 3 teams losing a couple games down the stretch, and not likely. But it's out there, and crazy things happen in college football. West Virginia very well could still be in the race. How crazy would that be? That'd be the one. Like, can you imagine how much of a redemption story that would be for Neal? I think all of us would say then, like, okay, I can live with it for another year if something like that happened. But obviously, that's out in the clouds. But listen, I can't be negative all the time. I have to dream a little bit. Like in my head, how great of an ending would that be? I would trade the fire Neal Brown stuff for that if we could somehow get to the Big 12 championship or something. All right, guys, I gotta go. I would love to keep talking, but I'm way past the limit, and they already got on to me for going too long the other day. So thank you guys, and we'll talk tomorrow. Like I said, I'll be live or do a pre-recorded one sometime in the afternoon. All right, y'all. See you tomorrow. This episode's over, and I am out. Oh, by the way, thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen of the day. If you could do me a favor, make Locked On Big 12 your second listen. Drake Toll, you guys know Drake. He leads the conversation of conference realignment news and pulls no punches when it comes to covering every team in the Big 12. Find Locked On Big 12 wherever you have YouTube or get podcasts. Thank you guys so much. Have a great one. See you tomorrow.